Hello guys, welcome to Security Red versus Blue Team channel. In today's video, we'll be discussing on what is security assessment and what are important steps that is involved in the security assessment and why do we need security assessment. So let's get started. So, what is security assessment? Security assessment it's like testing or evaluation of a security controls to determine the extent to which the controls are implemented correctly or operating as intended and producing the desired outcome with respect to meeting the security requirements for an information system or an organization. So, in high level, if you have to speak, finding out the security loopholes in the system and making it fixed before the product comes to the outer world where users can access so that the threats that are easier threats that are involved can be limited. That's the main goal of the every organization, to mainly to limit the loopholes that is present in the product before going it live. That's the main purpose of doing the security assessment for any product or a platform. And if you have to look at like why do we need security audit and assessment, so it's mainly to protect the critical data or identify the security loopholes and create any new security policies required based on the critical data. It can be payment data, or it can be a hospital data, it could be any other thing, and track the effectiveness of the security strategies. This is one of the main goal when doing the security audit. And if we have to look at what are the different steps involved, so let's get started. The first one is objective. So when performing the security assessment of any product or a platform, the first goal is to set the objectives, like whether we need to do create a threat model, and we need to analyze the test results and what are the different testing strategies that we'll be doing, and we need to go through the security threat and risk analysis that was already performed by another team, and review the product documentation and remove the false positives through that will be found as part of the regular testing usually performed by multiple security testing tools, and conduct the assessment to detect some of the security vulnerabilities. So there is like a whole lot of procedure. The key points has to be listed out when it comes to objectives. So this is the main objective. This is the important step. This is the first step that needs to be done whenever performing a security audit. So it will be in high level if you have to speak. So we need to know like what threat model that we will be using to identify the real asset controls and threat agents of a particular scenario, and conduct an assessment and review the documentation and check the threat and risk analysis document, then going proceed to the next step. Then if you move on to the next step, the document scope. So this is the second step. So in the document scope, we need to clearly mention what we will be doing the security audit and what we will not be doing. Let's take we have a platform. If we have a let's say if we have two virtual machines which is hosted on a physical hardware. On top of that, we have one application running, we have one Java application running, we have some C application running, we have some web application running, and we have some database running, and we have some third party application running. So we need to clearly define what's there in the scope. Let's say in case if database is not in the part of the scope for testing, then that needs to be excluded. That should be clearly mentioned in the scope of the document. So stating that the database related stuff will not be in the scope for the security audit. So that's the another important step where we need to mention, in case if a hardware audit is not in the scope, then we need to clearly mention that hardware or OS related which is not there in the scope will not be considered for testing. So clearly mentioning the objects in a particular platform or a product, that's the key step when it comes to security audit. So this is another important step, which is document scope. If you move on to the next step, platform or a product architecture. So once we are clear with the scope, where we have clearly mentioned like what processor, what platform will be what component will be audited, the next step is the platform or product architecture. So if we are performing an audit, so we must know what is the product architecture or a platform architecture. If it is a platform, it could be like a OpenStack or VMware, or it could be any other platform, or it could be a hardware platform or a software platform. If it is a particular product, we need to see what are the interconnected products, interconnected or externally connected products. So those connecting diagrams has to be it has to be proper, so that then only we can find out what is the incoming and outgoing points to a particular product or a platform where we can perform more testing. So that's the important key role of an auditor, to have a proper architecture diagram of a platform, or it can be a product. So this is another important step. So moving on to the next step, a platform or a product overview. So here, once we have the architecture diagram, one must know what our platform or a product does when it sits in the network environment, or when it sits in a particular user environment, where it has like if the user environment has a 10 different components, and if our component is one of them, then we must know this our component, from what all points it is getting the traffic, and from what all points it is giving out the traffic to end users. So we should note the entry and exit points, that is connecting through both user as well as the internal and external connected applications. So that should be clearly known by the product, clearly known by the security auditor. So here, the security auditor must have the knowledge of product. Then that should be described in few lines, after going through all the product documentation or a platform documentation that is received from the necessary teams. So this is another key important step, because if we are not understood the product well, and if we are not sure of the what are the entry and exit points of the particular product or platform where the traffic is coming and in and going out, then we won't be able to corner the loopholes that is present in the system. So this is the another major step in the security auditing, where one must evaluate the product overview, where what is the entry point and what is the exit point. So that's the important step. Moving on to the next step, the tools and techniques used for testing. So this is the the key step when it comes to the security auditing or assessment. So let's say, as you're taking an example of two virtual machines which are sitting on top of a hardware. So you are saying that let's consider that let's assume we have one Java web application, and we have one a database application, and we have some third party application. So considering that, in case if you have to do audit of an entire platform, let's say OS and the application. Now in this case, if you by default there are some tools come into play, like for example, we need to use nmap to find out the open ports. This is one of the important tool. And then comes the nasus, which is used to find the open ports and the services that is running on the server, that can be used to perform the scanning. So it provides the known vulnerabilities that is there in the nasus database. And then comes the wireshark. So this is the basic tool that is used by to perform the traffic analysis. So this is another important tool. And in, let's say, in case we have a particular protocol like a smtp or sftp or a diameter or anything. So in that case, if you want to perform protocol level testing, then we need to use defense 6, one of the best tools for protocol first testing, or it can be any other tool which is available in the market. And then comes then we have like metasploit to perform the exploit, to execute the exploits for any particular known vulnerabilities which is already there in the system. Or if you want to find out any zero day vulnerabilities, you can use metasploit. That's one of the best tool. And then we have semantic endpoint. So this is mainly to find out the malwares in the system which is present. So like this, like we have many other tools in the in nowadays. Like we have anchor for we have anchor tool for doing the scan for a docker machines. So like this, we'll be finding a number of tools. In case if your system has only the scripts or nothing much, if you want to perform any manual testing, so then you can perform the customized scripts which is there. So like this, we need to list out the number of tools that is required with respect to particular platform that you are auditing, or a particular product that you're auditing. It need not be these tools always. So it depends on the say platform or a product architecture. We need to come up with the tool. We, in the sense, like the auditor needs to come up with the tool what needs to be used for testing. So, so this is another major step when it comes to security auditing. The next comes the threat modeling. So once all the details are ready, the another important step is to perform to make a threat model, because we need to using this threat model, using the threat model, we will get to know we will mainly identify what are the different entry and exit points that needs to be performed for testing, that needs to be mainly audited. So we basically we used to go for one of the mostly used tool called Stride, which is provided by Microsoft. So the basically the Stride means it stands for spoofing, tampering, repudiation, information disclosure, denial of service, and elevation of privileges. So this is one of the most commonly used tool when it comes to threat modeling. So along with that, we have many other tools. We have Dread tool, we have Pasta tool, we have Strike, and we have Attack Tree, and we have a Mitre attack tool, and we have TMAM. So we have many other tools when it comes to threat modeling. So in our case, we used to go for most of the cases. We used to go for Microsoft Stride model, which is one of the best tool. Yeah. So here the main step is when it comes to threat modeling, take out any one tool, then frame the diagrams as per the architecture, then make the connecting points from one place to another place, then generate the threat model report. I hope will be coming soon coming up with a video, separate video on how to make a threat model using the Microsoft Stride model. Okay. Yeah. So in the threat model, the main goal is to find out what are the entry and exit points. So there are three major elements when it comes to threat model. We have assets, controls, and threat agents. So in the when it comes to assets, so assets in the sense, these are nothing but the important elements that are there in the system that needs to be protected, are nothing but the it mainly it states that there are important elements that needs to be protected. In case if you have to take some for an example, let's say we have a web application. You need to log into the web application each time using the username and password. So in this case, the credentials that is used to log into the web interface, so that is one asset that needs to be taken care. It should not be like a default credentials like admin 123 or something like that. So it should be so well designed in such a way that it's not easy to guess or it's not easy to brute force. So that is one of the important asset. And if you have some critical data that is stored in the system, or some banking details or application data, then user data will become another set of asset when it comes to threat model. And similarly, in case if the device is accessible to the external world, the external, especially the clients, not the external world, in that case the device configuration should be the another asset that should be protected. And if there are any some microservices that is running in the system, so similarly, depends on the platform or architecture, the auditor must find out what is the important asset that needs to be protected when it comes to threat model. As I said, for example, we have, it can be a user data, it can be a credential information, it could be web application credentials, or it could be database credentials, or it could be SSH credentials, or it could be any other services that are running on the system, or if there is any external or internal interfaces, like diameter or any other interfaces. So this will fall as a major threats when it comes to assets of a particular platform. Then comes the controls. The control is one such thing. This is something like which is already there in the system, which is affecting the security of the assets. So it is something like, let's say we have a credentials for a web login, one with admin credentials, one with non-admin credentials. If non-admin credentials are given with the full access like admin, then there's no point in having the admin credentials. So in that case, we need to ensure proper authorization is set. If not, if the authentication is proper and if authorization is not proper to limit the information, then there is no point in having the non-admin credentials or admin credentials. Then comes, it might be data hardening, or it can be a OS hardening that is performed by the company. So like this we have, it can be any controls that depends on the platform, or depends on the product architecture. One must set what is the important controls when it comes to threat modeling. Then comes the threat agents. So it's basically a malicious user which is there in the system, which is trying to bombard some huge amount of traffic towards the system, making the system down. It could be an internal malformed user, or it can be an external malformed user. So these are the things that we need to take in care. We need to identify where can be the major threat when we are looking at the product overview. So these are the important assets, controls, and threat agents that one must find out, and it varies from platform to platform or product to product. This is the job of a auditor to find out what are the important assets, controls, and threat agents. Then comes the risk rating. So one must know like what is the risk rating and how to rate once the findings are known. Let's say you have some findings, and how to rate it, whether it is a high, medium, low, critical, or informational. So this needs to be assigned based on the particular CVSS score, CVSS score rating ranking. If we have a CVSS score ranking from 0 to 10, so if the score falls between if the score is like below zero point 0.1, then we call it as informational one. If the score is between zero point 0.1 to 3.9, then we call it as a low finding. If the score is between 4 to 6.9, then it's a medium severity finding. If the vulnerability score is between 7 to 8.9, then we call it as a high finding. Then if the vulnerability score is between 9 to 10, then we call it as a critical. So one must aware like based on the vulnerability that is found and with respect to the system, what rating should be assigned. So the risk rating must be properly known and it should be properly set. So based on that, the platform or product owners can take the actions accordingly. Then goes to the next step, the testing plan. So once this is done, we must set the testing plan. Here we need to define for all what all different assets or controls or threat agents that is identified through the threat model, what kind of testing needs to be performed, whether it's a vulnerability discovery testing, or it could be a robustness testing, or it could be a malware analysis testing, or it could be a OS hardening, or it could be a benchmarking kind of testing, or it could be a DOS attacks testing, or it could be a port scanning testing. And we need to define a particular tools that is required, and we need to define what are all the interfaces that needs to be tested. So it has to be clearly planned, designed in a table format. Let's say we have one column as testing number, and another column as the tool used, and what another column as the interface that is should be considered. In another column, what is the asset that we are testing. So something like this, we need to make a plan. And for every application or platform or hardware, the particular plan has to be designed, and in matching with the tools and threat model agents. So this is the another goal of an auditor, to make a perfect test plan. So once the testing plan is done, in a high level, the summary of findings needs to be mentioned, stating that okay, we have done the audit of this system, and we found out like five critical vulnerabilities, five medium vulnerabilities, and five low vulnerabilities. So like this, we need to list out all the summary of the findings. Now let's say for example, we have find out critical, high, medium, or a low level findings, and one must input some of the important elements when you're find out some vulnerability. Let's say I found out some cross-site scripting vulnerability in a web interface, or have found some SQL injection vulnerability, or on a database. So in that case, one must mention what is the description of the vulnerability and what is the components that is affected. Let's say if the web application is present in one system, in the application one, and if the web application is present in application two, if only application one is impacted, then we need to clearly mention that affected components is only on the node one. So it's something like that. Then we need to mention how to reproduce the steps, because the product owner or the platform owner must be able to reproduce the step so that they can provide a proper fix. Then comes the CVSS score. We need to define the proper the rating for the vulnerability based on the details that we have when in the CVSS calculator. We need to input what is an attack vector, what is the attack complexity, do we need credentials to log in to perform the attack, is there a scope change, is there a user activity required, and is there any confidentiality, integrity, or availability vectors impacting at high scale. So we need to assess all these information thoroughly. Then we need to put the details accordingly. In case if anyone is not aware like how to assess the CVSS score of a particular scenario, then you can watch out the video that is provided in the link in the description, and also in the I button below, on the I button, where we have completely covered the detailed video on how to calculate a CVSS score. which is basically a common vulnerability scoring system. How to assign a CVSS score for a particular finding. And then comes the finally we need to mention what is the remediation. So these are the important steps. Once we are whenever we are mentioning the vulnerability finding, we need to have a description, and we need to mention the affected components or the nodes, and we need to mention the steps to reproduce, and we need to highlight what is the score, whether it is a critical, high, medium, or low. And then we need to mention what is the remediation steps. Remediation steps varies, depends, because we don't know the how the product application code works. So we can mention on high level what we feel that this is right to fix this. So then it's left to the platform or a product owner to apply the changes to perform as fix, or to apply the fix as per the need. And then so these are the important things whenever we are inputting the details for mainly for vulnerability findings that is found during the product assessment. So this is one of the major this is the major step when it comes to security audit or finding in any organization, where people will be more interested to see what kind of findings what kind of critical or high medium vulnerabilities are there in their product. So here is the place where the people will be always interested to see the findings. So let's go to the next step. Then we have general observations and recommendations. So it's basically beyond the findings. Let's say like we have audited two servers, and if there are some scripts with improper permissions, or if there are some paths with the incorrect permissions where non-root user can perform some operations on the root folder. So these kind of steps, or if there is any important observations like credential is stored in the clear text in some text files where others can access it. So these kind of important general observations, one must mention it. If there is some odd CAS benchmarking audit recommendations which is not followed by the application or the server, so those kind of steps we can clearly mention in the general observations part. So it varies from server to server, it varies from product to product or platform to platform. So it is left to the auditor um, to notify. It is it's the main job of the auditor to notify if there is any important observations, so that can be fine tuned, so that there is not even a limited loophole that is present in the system for the attacker to gain. Then comes the additional information. So additional information, it's basically like which is beyond the testing scope. So it could be it's not beyond the testing scope, but we can mention like because we will be doing hundreds of tests. It's not that every test will result in some vulnerability. So only out of 100 tests you might get only 5 vulnerabilities, but still you can mention like if the what are all the 95 tests that you have conducted out of 100. So that's a valid scenario, so that the product team will get to know, okay, our platform team will get to know, okay, we have missed this test during our internal testing. So when external auditor is doing the testing, so they found out this information. So even they have performed through this testing, so that product teams can or a platform team can perform whenever they are doing the next release of a particular product or platform. They can go through all the different testing scenarios that is performed by an auditor. So this is one good information where auditors or assessment people can put the details like what are the testing scenarios they have come across. And then comes the final optional page, which is the change history, where usually we mention what is the date, what is the action, who is the user who did the changes in the document, and what is the property name, or it's an optional one. And then if there is any author, if there is any approver, that you can put it as in one column. So you can just mention like what are the changes you are doing whenever you perform a change in this particular security audit report. So that can be clearly mentioned. So this is one of the important steps, so that people can track it whenever they are tracking the audits. This is one important one, so that it will not be confused with the old or new report. So it would be good to it would be a good practice to maintain the change history um, in a particular in the last section of the page. This where it shows the standards of a particular document that we are doing. Yeah, so that's it, guys. This is with respect to security auditing. So we have done with the presentation. Thanks once again for watching the video. So I hope we covered very important information that is required by every organization when it comes to security auditing or assessment. So thanks once again for watching. Please do like, share, comment, and subscribe. Do let me know for any improvements or suggestions for this topic specifically. We'll soon come up with a new video. Thanks once again for watching.